Alright, yo, it's your boy Yoshikidneo, and we are back. But today we're doing something a little bit different. We're not going to be playing any D&D, we're not going to be playing any VR. What we're going to be doing is discussing the differences between Foundry Virtual Tabletop System and Roll20 Virtual Tabletop System. And the reason is initially when I had made the switch, there were only a few videos out there that actually kind of went over a lot of the reasons why a lot of people were going over it. And they had some good reasons to do it, but I feel like having experienced Roll20 for the better part of 3 to 4 years and being in love with Foundry so much after only a couple months of using it, do feel like it just needs to be said that there needs to be more support for Foundry Virtual Tabletop. And before I get into it, a little backstory on my DMing career, on what led me to virtual tabletops in the first place, was the fact that the first time I had ever really DM'd a module or anything like that before was on a deployment with some good friends of mine. We were bored. We ended up deciding we were going to play some D&D, so we played the 3.5 edition module, The Sunless Citadel. It was my first time ever running a module. It was my first time ever running a game. And it was all of their first times ever playing the game. So there were a lot of kinks, a lot of things that we had to get around. The biggest challenge, though, especially being deployed, was how do I narrate the space that their characters are in? How do I show them where they're at without having any type of detailed map or excessive preparation and things like that? What we ended up doing actually was pretty funny. We took the game Civilization, the board game, and there are these tiles that comes into the game, and I used that essentially to make the map that their characters would walk on and things like that. So you got to do what you can with what you've got. But I want to bring up virtual tabletops as opposed to in-house session styles because of how much easier, how streamlined so many monotonous tasks get when you make that switch. So going from in-person to a virtual tabletop is just a night and day difference. There are so many different things that you can do inside of a virtual tabletop that you would never be able to dream of being able to do in person. Granted, the flip side is there are many things you can't do in person that you can do on a virtual tabletop. And I believe there is a way to make both of these collide to make the best experience, but unfortunately, it's just not feasible, especially because my group, only one person in my group actually lives in my city. The rest of them live in different states, so there's no way to get everybody together once a week. So that's why virtual tabletops have become such a need, especially with everything going on in the world currently. So today we're going to look at Roll20. We're going to look at some of the things that really brought me from the normal tabletop experience to the virtual style. And that wasn't just because, I was able to hop online and play with my friends that I actually wanted to play with instead of, trying to find a group nearby. Which was the biggest reason. I'm sure I could make a group in person, but let's just dive in. So, first thing you get to see on a virtual tabletop is that the background images are literally anything that you can upload to the server or the tabletop that you're using. So this right here, everything that you see is pretty much I put together in Photoshop a good majority of it. The map itself, I actually use a tool called WonderDraft, which is wonderful, pun intended, I guess, at making these type of maps. I like to use them mainly for large geographical locations, but I've seen a lot of people make some really good things for like battle maps, things like that. But those types of tools can actually be integrated into a in-person session. And most of the virtual tabletop stuff that I'm going to talk about today is also able to be done, in person still. But especially if your group is far and wide, I want to mostly discuss the differences between Roll20 and Foundry, which for Roll20, if we look here, I've been a member of Roll20 since September 1st of 2016. I'm the GM of 4 different games, and I've got a total of like 1,425 hours played on this system. And after all of that, after the money that I've put into it as well, I made the jump to Foundry, and there's never a day, there's never a session that I ever look back. But Roll20 still has its perks to it. And I'd say one of the main perks is the fact that, let's see. One of the main perks is definitely the fact that they have a free version, a free service for the game. So if you're trying to get set up real quick in a virtual tabletop, but you're not trying to fork out money because you're not sure if it's going to be long term or anything, Roll20 is perfect, because with the free, you get very limited on like all the different assets and stuff that they have, but you can upload up to 100 megabytes of images, maps, tokens, music, even things like that. You can upload all of that up to 100 megabytes before you have to either start deleting stuff, or you have to buy one of their other higher tier subscriptions. So in a pinch, Roll20 is wonderful. I don't believe there are any other virtual tabletops out there that do offer a free way to play that have the capabilities that Roll20 has. So if you're trying to not spend any money at all and you don't mind doing a lot of extra work, then Roll20 is perfect because of the free model. Now, for just $4.16 or $4.16 a month, you end up getting that upload storage up to 3 gigabytes, which is obviously significant. You don't have to worry about the ads. You get this nice little dynamic lighting feature, which is really cool. It brings a whole other level of immersion that you can't really get in person. Like I guess you could like put like black tiles or something over the rest of the map that the party hasn't explored. But the cool thing about dynamic lighting, especially in virtual tabletop, is the fact that you can set each token's specific vision. So let's say not all the characters have dark vision, and one of them doesn't. You set them to where they don't have dark vision. Now they rely on a torch. They have to use a torch. They can't, be like, oh, well, I'll just grab onto dude, because they're not going to have as much fun. So they're going to light a torch to see the way. And that torch is going to lead to different encounters, all types of stuff, things that you can think of to like throw them off. And I mean, dynamic lighting, that is one of the key points that really made me like Roll20, was the fact that I could use this. And the thing that sucked about it was that I had to pay monthly for it. I ended up forking out the $50 for the year, because you do save, 15% like it says right here. So for $50 for the whole year, for 12 months, you get to use all these neat features and things like that. Not that bad. But for $100 a year, you get all of this stuff. And I was close to doing this, but I have no idea what any of this stuff really means in terms of like, would I actually use it? Do I actually need it? But I can tell you that on Roll20, it is definitely not a bad investment to spend the $50 for the whole year, especially if this is going to be your place of play for long term. Because as you can see right now, I've got a lot of assets, and that's just on right here. I've got a lot more in my little journal over here of things that, because I mean, over 4 years, you end up making a lot of stuff. So you can upload all of this, and once you upload it, it stays into the storage. Whatever the name is, you can end up typing it in to try to find it quicker. That way, if you're like making a new token and you just drag the image over, upload it, boom, you're done. So those are some of the selling points on Roll20 and what makes it great. What I don't like about it though is the fact that, well, in order to get these effects, you have to pay a monthly at least or a yearly type of subscription. They don't have any type of pay model that's a pay this much and you get this effect forever. Um, and that to me was one of the bigger selling points of Foundry, because let's go over to Foundry real quick. And this amount right there is all you ever have to pay in terms of Foundry to get pretty much all this stuff. There's no load screen ads because Foundry is self-hosted. And what that means is when you load up Foundry, when I load up Foundry, all of this is using my system, my assets, my internet connection, all of that to host the game. It has invitation links that after you port forward and things like that, it has invitation links that you send to the party. They click on them and they load right into the server. Their connection is host to host, so from their computer to your computer, you're not worried about the server being down on Roll20. You're not worried about them doing maintenance in Roll20. You don't have to worry about them getting hacked at Roll20. Any of that stuff. You don't have. It's like out of sight, out of mind. You don't have to worry about that with Foundry. As long as you can open up and you have a solid connection, your players can hop in and start playing. The other thing is all of those like APIs, the dynamic lighting, all of that stuff is built into Foundry. You do not have to pay anything extra. You pay that 50 bucks, you get a licensed key, and all the development that they're doing with this tabletop, you get to reap the benefits. So let me show you some of the effects that I've got going on with this dynamic lighting, and uh, I'll just show you how immersive it can kind of be with what I did the other day for my players, because one of them was coming from one location and he'd walked through the sort of shady side of town. So as you can see, like the door right here has these like illuminating effect. All the lamps have this illuminating effect. The moon, you could end up having an effect to it, but I didn't find one that I kind of liked to fit the scene. So really what I just did was you can kind of see the cutoff of the shadow right here. So if I were to, for instance, take that light, let's copy it and let's delete it. Now look at how dark everything got. And then if I bring it back, so this little I guess token, you could call it for lack of a better term. These tokens all have their own like script that they're running. They have their own values that they're producing onto the map. All of this is essentially what you would get with the dynamic lighting from Roll20, but I don't even think that their dynamic lighting goes that far. I'm pretty sure that there's no real way to add, unless you buy this subscription, the pro subscription, to get those API scripts. I think that's the only way that you're able to get this type of lighting effect so that you can make scenes like this. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's this little bit of fog right here that's starting to go off the screen. So that's showing that, it's a little bit humid as it starts to get a little colder. A lot of the moisture in the air is starting to gather in these cobblestone streets and things like that. You don't get that with Roll20, not one bit. And the thing is, I paid the $50 for this to be, accessible to me. I put in the work. I downloaded the modules and the maps and stuff that I needed and put it all together. And it only cost me 50 bucks. In order to get that on Roll20, you're gonna have to at least pay $8.33 for the month, which is, you know, that's not bad, but the thing is, if you're going to keep on doing things like that to bring to your game, you're going to have to keep doing it every month. And, you know, after a year, you've already paid $100. You've already paid double what Foundry is going to cost you to get the same effect. So that was another, like, I didn't even know I could do this stuff, and I had made the switch to Foundry. And, you know, now I'm even happier for it because I can do this stuff without forking over extra cash. So the pay model that Roll20 has, all their subscription, like the fact that they're a subscription model is, you know, that's a big bummer because there's so much that you could have done or that they could do with this virtual tabletop, but they're behind a paywall. And even behind that paywall, there's still a lot of limitations because of the fact that it's using, you know, their dedicated servers and things like that. The cool thing about Foundry is they have different ways for you to like host all of this stuff. So I could host my game onto my own server that I maintain or that I purchase access to from like Amazon AWS, for instance. So if you were to do that, I'm pretty sure the subscription fee for the server is anywhere from like $3 to $5 a month. So you're essentially paying the exact same in subscription fee over the long term just to host it yourself, but now the value has already doubled because of all the stuff you can do. And that's not all. So let's say that you buy these modules, like the player's handbook, for instance. You buy it on to Roll20. It will only ever be accessible via Roll20. You cannot port it anywhere else. You cannot, or I'm pretty sure you could download it somehow, but more than likely it would be not 100% legal. But I'm not 100% sure how that all works because I've only purchased one module, Curse of Strahd, and you know, since we're not even playing Curse of Strahd on Foundry, I haven't even bothered trying to like port it or anything like that. But the cool thing is D&D Beyond, you can purchase all the, you know, the same stuff for the same price. And I also know D&D Beyond does sales, and they've also got these bundles. So the bundle ends up getting, I'm pretty sure, yeah, so you can get everything for 15% off essentially if you buy it in a bundle. And I mean, it is insane, $700 to buy all the source books, but you don't even need the source books to play the game on a virtual tabletop because you can make the assets yourself. You can take the book if you have it in front of you, and you can plug in all of the stuff. You can do that on, you know, you can do that here. Uh, you can plug in all the stuff on your own. You can do that on Roll20, and you can also do it in, I'll just pick a random person. You can do that in Foundry as well. Like, it doesn't truly matter. Uh, it's just that the assets, if you buy them on D&D Beyond, there's an actual module that brings your stuff from D&D Beyond to Foundry in a workable format. If you had purchased the monster manual, for instance, it'll put it to where all of the character sheets and tokens are already created for you right here on Foundry. So I know a lot of people, they bought their stuff, they bought all their digital assets on D&D Beyond, and there's no real way to port them to Roll20 as a complete whole, because they're two different businesses and they don't want that. Foundry takes that limitation away. So they're not here to try to make as much money off of you as possible. The development team is very open about what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a experience that everybody can enjoy and sort of tailor to their own needs and things like that. And speaking of tailoring to their own needs, if we go to the Systems, Modules, and Worlds page on Foundry, besides the exclusive content and the premium content, which I believe those are somebody else, some third party created those, hosted them onto Foundry for, you know, like $5 or something like that. So excluding those, look at this. You've got 75 game systems that are available in use with Foundry. And game system would be, you know, Pathfinder, D&D 5e, 3, 3.5, 4e. They've got all the other really large tabletop role-playing games as well available. We can go through, like, you can go through and see all of the different game systems that you could play on Foundry. Foundry isn't just made for D&D. Roll20, I don't believe is made just for D&D, but I also don't believe that it is as easy to make for certain game systems either. And this is the fun part right here, is the add-on modules. There are currently 537, you know, modules that were made by people that play the game. They just decided to go ahead and script some stuff, take some of their time to essentially devote to making Foundry even better. What these modules do is when you download one of them, they add an extra bit of functionality to the system. So for instance, the dynamic lighting, the different effects are built in, but there's some extra ones that I had purchased, or well, not purchased, my bad. There are some extra ones that I had downloaded via the module that gave me even broader horizons on what I can do with these kind of theater of the mind maps. Let's see. There's a module that allows you to import an entire YouTube playlist and stream it through Foundry instead of having to, you know, try to either download it from YouTube in some way, shape, or form in order to just, you know, use it for a session. Granted, I know there's a lot of other systems out there that allow you to essentially stream music, but this one plugs it into Foundry as a YouTube playlist. So, like, just for shits and giggles, I ended up downloading the entire Sonic the Hedgehog 2 original soundtrack from that playlist and putting it into here. Now, by no means does this mean that it's actually downloaded to my computer. I'm pretty sure all it's doing is it's using it as a stream. So it's streaming it from YouTube to Foundry using that module. There's also a cool soundboard module. There's a bunch of... So most of these assets as well, these are assets that I own, that I have on my computer, and they're pulled directly from a file on my computer to Foundry. Whereas with Roll20, I would have to go into this music, I would have to manage the audio, I'd have to upload it to their server, which takes up some of my storage space. So now not only do I have it on my home computer, but now I'm using it in their storage. So it's almost like I have the file twice, but I don't need it twice, you know, unless you're doing some type of repetitive data bank or something like that. But with Foundry, it's linked to Foundry directly from that file. It doesn't have to make multiple spots. So I'm able to keep all of my files on my Google Drive in this nice little folder. Everything's in the data. It's beautiful. I just love the fact that it's using my local resources as opposed to me being at the mercy of somebody else's server resources and data storage resources. Another good thing about Foundry is the fact that, like, the scenes. So, on Roll20, and granted, over the 3 years that I played, or over the 4 years just about that I had played on Roll20, there was nothing outside of some sort of, like, paid module or paid service in order to get somebody's, you know, pre-made assets and put them into my own game. Whereas Foundry, there are people in the community that have made map packs and things like that that they have put onto Foundry for free so that you can just have them. So, like these uncolored little folders right here, these are all, you know, free assets that somebody just put and allowed me to essentially download so that I can use them for my game. And like the level of detail, So you should be able to see all these blinking lights and the torches and stuff. You can see the walls and things like that, which I don't think you get any type of walls unless you have the subscription, the first tier subscription on Roll20. Whereas Foundry, once you buy it, you've got walls and you can put them down. There are these doors and things that you can open and close. There's modules that allow you to have these maps like this, to where like there's stairwells and stuff. And when your token moves through it, it uses some sort of JavaScript or something to put them onto that other location very seamlessly. And if that's not enough, the development team is constantly taking in the community's requests and trying to implement as much into the base system as is, so that when you download Foundry at 8 point whatever in the future, it's going to have a lot of these modules already inputted into the code itself, which makes it just even more seamless between everything. So like Roll20, it was wonderful, but you can definitely tell that they are in the business of making money as opposed to in the business of making a better product. And the reason I say that is because over the course of the 4 years that I had played on Roll20, I didn't see a lot of system development in the form of making things quicker to load, or giving us more utilization of the resources and assets, or any other type of like dynamic effects or things to really bring the game to life. They didn't add any new tools or anything like that. Like everything you see here, is most of it is pretty much how it's been for 4 years. They've tweaked some things here and there. They've added some things to the higher subscription models, and obviously, if you are under these pro accounts, you can get these things that kind of autonomize your game. But with Foundry, you pay the $50, and you've got all of these different modules, all 537 of them that you don't need. For instance, currently I have 110 active modules. So that's, think of in the terms of Skyrim, how when you download mods and stuff, that's exactly like these are mods for Foundry. So it's like an open modding community. They're making stuff for all types of stuff. And I've got 110 of them active right now, but I'm pretty sure I've got 161 of them sort of downloaded, ready to go. And they just did an update to Foundry, so not all of these modules are like 100% up to speed with the current edition of Foundry. And that's probably the only setback to Foundry, is that when an update does come out, if you were to update the system, it could break some of your modules. Which, if it breaks some of your modules, depending on how crucial that is in your game, you could delay a session if it doesn't get fixed in time, or if you're not able to find a workaround. So that's probably, I think that's only happened once, where we've started a session, and as we were playing, I realized that something got broke after an update, and we ended up working around it for the time being. But it was really annoying to know that we could have had a much smoother game session had I just not updated for a little bit. And that's definitely my only gripe, I think, with Foundry currently. I get to use my assets from my local computer. I use my own home connection to provide the server for my party. So it may be a little slower for them depending on how far away they are, but for me, it's it's spick and span and right there, ready to go. Like hopping from scene to scene is almost seamless. And if we were, look, yeah, my server connection's already been interrupted. And that wasn't that bad either, but I can't click because things haven't loaded all the way. So, Roll20, you're using a server that a lot of other people are also using. So it's, a bunch of clashing of bandwidth. allocation and things like that. We've had sessions on Roll20 where there was such a large amount of people playing that we would roll a d4 and it wouldn't come up for like 10 minutes, literally 10 minutes. So that's what you get with Roll20. Uh, Having a higher subscription doesn't allocate any extra bandwidth to you. All it does is give you some of these neat perks. And, you know, for those that use Roll20 and pay these prices, you know, more power to you. But in all honesty, free wasn't enough for me to be able to continue my virtual tabletop career. And $4.16 a month for life essentially is what I'm pretty like. I don't think they'll ever go away from a subscription module. But $50, a one-time purchase of $50, and the continual improvements that they are making on Foundry, that was enough for me to drop the 1,425 hours that I have spent on this virtual tabletop to dive into a completely new experience, and I have loved every second of it. Every day I feel like there's a new module that gets posted on to the subreddit for Foundry of somebody that's like, hey guys, I made this thing that really is cool that does this, this, and that. And I download it, and it adds so much more enjoyment to our games. Now, I didn't want to make this video to, you know, bash anybody or anything like that. This video is mainly to try to show some of the differences that I had over my 4 years of playing in a virtual tabletop experience. Roll20, everything that comes with like the character sheets, all of this stuff is on Foundry. Let me open up one of the character sheets of the player. So here's the player character sheet. You can add as much or as little information on this sheet as you want. And you've got all these different tabs, so everything's set up very nice. You've got different things that you can do on the sheets like that. There's so much that I could make a long playlist of videos just for like specific parts of Foundry. And I don't know. Like, yeah, you can do some cool macro stuff that I've got over here, but I mean, you got all that stuff. Like these macro buttons, it's a single module that was already done. So if you look, like, let me just click on Quinn. If you see up here, all of those are macros that I had to hand jam in order to get those. Whereas Foundry, there's a module where it automatically takes all of that using API scripting. And where do you get API scripting with Roll20? You gotta pay that premium price. So for $8.33 a month, you end up getting those API scriptings. But what you don't think about is after 7 months, you've paid more for Roll20 than you will have for Foundry at that point in time. So if you're a long form D&D player and you're going to be hosting your game online for the next, I would say even just a year. If you're going to be playing D&D virtual tabletop for a year, there is no reason not to get Foundry for this price. Not to mention the fact that the more updates that come out, the better the system will get, the more things you'll be able to do with it. And I don't think Roll20 is even thinking about trying to stimulate any type of, you know, platform like this. I really don't think they are. And it might be because it's all web-based. You know, it might be because Roll20 is strictly web-based, whereas Foundry has the option of being self-hosted, or you can post it to the web using some sort of like dedicated server or something like that. But yeah, there's just really no reason I could see if you're going to be playing D&D for more than a year, there's no reason to go and do it on Roll20 unless you literally think you're going to be doing it for free. If you're going to be playing for free and you're cool with having only 100 megabytes to utilize for all of your maps, tokens, music, things like that, and you don't want these dynamic lightings to add this extra bit of immersion, and you don't want the APIs and different modules that Foundry allows you to download just to get that extra little bit of immersion, then kudos to you. I'm glad that you can play Roll20 for free, but I definitely couldn't do it. And all the modules right here, like they recently made it to where like you go to install a module. Not everything that's been developed is in here. Some of it hasn't been listed yet, and I don't know exactly what the process of all that is, but everything that you could ever need, it's all sorted. You can click on the GitHub link so that you can go to it. You can read about what it does and things like that. If you like it, tight. You click this install button, it installs onto your world or into Foundry. Once you launch your world, you go in, you activate the module, you do some configurations to get the settings exactly how you want it, and you start playing with it. Roll20, I never got into the API scripting at all, so I don't know what the capabilities are per se for it, but I know they're nowhere near as in depth as the things that you can do with Foundry. And that's pretty much my spiel on Roll20 versus Foundry. So I guess real quick, a quick recap is Roll20, if you're planning on just using it for a couple of sessions because maybe your group, like somebody's taking an extended trip somewhere, but they still want to play, there's no reason you shouldn't make a free account on Roll20, play for a couple weeks, upload, up to 100 megabytes of pictures and tokens and things like that so that you can still enjoy the hobby. But once you start getting into these subscription models, once you really start getting to the point where you're making Virtual Tabletop your main form of play, the fact that over the course of a year you're going to spend more than $50 on Roll20, that right there already tells me that the better investment for your money is Foundry. Especially if you're trying to get into this heavy like scripting and things like that, these very technical methods and things like that that get ran in the game. There's no I'm sure if you go and look at some of the pro API scripts and you watch somebody's like Roll20 game and how much API scripting they have and what it does, if you look at that, I guarantee you 100% that for 50 bucks you will get that and more somewhere in these 537 modules. So that's my spiel on Roll20 versus Foundry. Foundry is 100% my favorite virtual tabletop system out there. I looked into Fantasy Grounds, didn't really like it because it's also, I believe, a subscription model, and you can't beat a pay for a license key and that's all you have to do. You just can't beat it, especially in the long term. As the years go by, you're going to end up putting more money into these different virtual tabletops online, but you could have paid a single $50 price, which is the price of a new video game anyway. And this is the one that you play over the years of your life. So appreciate everyone coming out and joining me. I am going to go ahead and cut the video feed at this point and end the video, but probably do some D&D prep here in a second. So thank you all for coming out, and we'll see you next time. Peace!